victor. He has already spoken to supporters and thanked them for their support. He goes on to a general election battle against Congresswoman Ann Kirkpatrick, which is expected to be an expensive, very hard-fought race for the next 70 days or so. Let's get to the sheriff's race right now, and in the Republican primary once again. Not a surprise here. Sheriff Joe Arpaio beating his challenger, former Buckeye Police Chief Dan Sabin. Again, overwhelming victory for Arpaio, but the real challenge for Arpaio comes in the general election when he is expected to face off against former Phoenix police officer Paul Penzone, who's been running as a Democrat and ran against Arpaio 4 years ago, losing by just a single-digit margin there. In the county recorder's race, and this is one that we are following very closely, take a look at the numbers here. Helen Purcell taking on Aaron Flannery, who was sort of a late ad and sort of a guy that decided he was going to run after the election debacle in March here. Rudy Espino from ASU. Does this surprise you? Because Helen Purcell certainly has had her share of problems in terms of running elections.
Yeah, she has. I mean, this is not the first debacle, but the one we saw this last spring was very significant in terms of how long people had to stand in line to cast their ballots. I'm frankly surprised that she is in as tight a race as she is, given her name recognition. But it just shows how upset people were, given what happened this spring, that they're willing to vote for an outside establishment candidate such as Flannery.
Let's get on to some of the other races now. Let's go to District 5 right now, and this is one that we're going to be watching very closely all night long. This is the one in a predominantly Republican district, and Christine Jones hanging on to a narrow lead here. You were telling me earlier, this does surprise you a little bit, even though Jones has poured millions into this race.
Yes, it does surprise me because the previous representative of this district, Matt Salmon, very popular in this district, identifies with a significant base in this district. It has a significant Mormon population, with Salmon being Mormon and then anointing Biggs, if you will, endorsing Biggs over Jones, and Jones not being LDS, also not living in the district. I'm frankly surprised that there's not more support for any of the other candidates, especially Biggs.
Yeah, Biggs running a very close race here. We should say this is far from over. You're only looking at about 1,200 votes here, and you've got some strong showings from some of these other candidates. Curious to think, though, in a very heavily Mormon district like District 5, some of these other candidates also identify with that faith. Possible that it perhaps splits the vote among the LDS.
Yeah, I think right now Biggs is wishing that Stapley and Olson had not been running for the race, because they probably are siphoning votes away from him and advantaging Jones.
So right now we're going to show you a live picture right now from the Christine Jones headquarters. She is not coming out yet just at this point, but obviously a lot of anticipation there. A lot of folks pretty excited about the results they are seeing. And once again, Jones, the former GoDaddy executive who has a lot of personal money in this, but essentially ran as an outsider in a campaign year where outsiders have done very well.
Yeah, I think that's emblematic of a lot of what's going on, not just here, but nationwide. Again, might call it the Trump effect. It's splitting the Republican Party, and you have a lot of disaffected Republican voters across the nation, but in CD5 as well, and Jones is riding that wave.
Let's go on now to District 1, and this is another very close race that we are following, and we're expecting to watch it all night long at this point. A crowded Republican field in a district that has gone back and forth over the years. 2008 went to a Democrat, 2010 goes to a Republican, back to Democrat in 2012 and 2014, and this is for the who will represent the Republican side here. Pinal County Sheriff Paul Babu, despite a lot of controversy in his past, a lot of political scandals, with a pretty commanding lead at this point over former Air Force pilot and Colonel Wendy Rogers.
Yeah, Rogers has run before. She knows how to run an effective campaign, but Babu, again, law and order resonates very strongly in this district, which, looking forward to the general election, though, it will be a swing district. District 1 switches back and forth. Another district, of course, District 9, in our own backyard here. That's another one that we want to look at closely moving forward to the general election.
Yeah, and that one currently represented by Kirsten Sinema. District 4 is a race that we've been following at this point, though, and not as much of a challenge as perhaps we thought there might be here. Paul Gosar declared the winner here by AP, despite facing a challenge from Ray Strauss, who had a lot of outside money fighting that now infamous Freedom Caucus within Congress.
Yeah, correct. And again, this is perhaps something that shows that riding that anti-Republican or anti-establishment wave doesn't work for all candidates. candidates. Seems to be working for Christine Jones, not working for Ray Strauss.
So at this point, we're following a number of these races right now, also following what's expected to be a very close, at least Democratic primary in District 2. And certainly when we look at the national scope here and look at some of the races that the national parties are following, you got to put the Senate race down there. That's possibly switchable. District 1 could go Republican as well. District 2, always a challenge there. That's gone back and forth. Gabby Gifford's former district.
Right.
And as you mentioned, District 9, which has a collection and a mix of Republicans and Democrats. So a lot of eyes in the nation right now on our Arizona primary. We're going to continue to follow these results, especially those close races in congressional districts 1 and 5. And we got to talk a little bit about what's happening tomorrow, because again, we're going to be the focus of the nation. Donald Trump coming here finally to deliver that immigration policy speech. It had been scheduled at least twice that I recall here, and then canceled, and then it was on again, off again, even here. How difficult is it for Donald Trump to deliver a message that resonates both with his Republican base, but at the same time brings more people into the tent and attracts more of those Latino and minority voters that a lot of people are saying he cannot win unless he can attract a larger percentage of minority voters?
Yeah, I can refer back to the 2004 election, that magic threshold that George Bush set in order to get the general election. You have to get 40% of the Latino electorate, perhaps even more so now. When Trump is going to be in town tomorrow giving his immigration policy speech, the nation is going to be looking at us. And I think a lot of what he's going to say is going to advantage him with the Republican base here in Arizona, but there's going to be spillover effects that are going to affect battleground states. We already talked about this before. Nevada, Colorado, North Carolina, Florida. And what he's going to say here is not just going to have an effect in Arizona, but it's going to have effect nationwide. And Republican candidates in those other states are going to be crossing their fingers. He's not going to say something that's going to offend that Latino electorate that could affect them in November.
In Colorado, one of the states where he was supposed to originally deliver that speech, and then it later got canceled. Are you surprised that he's not giving that speech in a state that's more up in the air? Because I think the conventional wisdom shows that we're still a red state, and he still probably has a better chance of winning here than he does in, say, Colorado or Nevada, Pennsylvania, Florida, those states that are going to really make or break him. Most people are saying Trump's still probably the odds-on favorite here.
All polling indicates that he is the odds-on favorite. And to your question, I am surprised. If I were working for him, I'd tell him, hey, Arizona is already going to go in your favor. You probably want to make this speech in a state that's more up in the air and appeal to the Republican base in those states. But again, I don't work for him. I can only say what I would be doing.
Yeah, and obviously it's been a little bit of a debate in the campaign just because of the different positions that they've been playing around with a little bit in the campaign and the different places where he's been talking about giving the speech. Of course, we'll be covering that for you as well. That speech is expected to start about 6 o'clock at the Phoenix Convention Center, and it comes after Trump flies to Mexico and actually meets for the first time with the Mexican president there. So that will be an interesting meeting as well. So a lot of politics to cover here for you. We're going to be wrapping it all up for you coming up on ABC 15 News at 10.